Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the 2025 CLAIR Forum. My name is Emily Yamanishi, and I am a Research and Liaison Officer at the Japan Local Government Center, also known as CLAIR Sydney. I will be leading proceedings today. First of all, I would like to make a few housekeeping announcements. The emergency exit and stairs are located to the right of the lifts. The exits are marked by green exit signs. In case of an emergency, staff of UTS will give out instructions. The bathrooms are outside of this room, either side of the lifts. If you haven't done so already, please switch off your mobile phone or switch it to silent mode. This year's forum is divided into two sessions. In the first part, we will hear from our two presenters, Hiro and Gemma. After their talks, there will be a 15-minute Q&A. We will then take a short break before moving on to the second half of the program. In the second part, we will hear from Morihito and Carla. There will be another 15-minute Q&A after their talks. For those who are joining us online through Zoom, we will be recording this seminar and uploading it later online. So if you would not like to be recorded, please feel free to have your cameras off. Also, we will have 20 minutes break from 3 p.m. So feel free to leave the Zoom meeting and come back by 3:20 p.m. For those who are here in person, please feel free to help yourself to the drinks and drinks and food at the side of the room. As our Japanese presenters are not native English speakers, we would appreciate it if you could be mindful of the potential language barrier when asking questions and slow down your speech. Now, I would like to call upon the Executive Director of the Japan Local Government Center, CLAIR Sydney, Mr. Manya Hiraki, to officially open the proceedings and introduce this year's theme.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Manya Hiraki from CLAIR Sydney. Thank you very much for taking the time to attend our forum today. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and pay my respect to the elders both past and present. I would also like to express my sincere gratitude to Carol, Tish, and Flu from the UTS for their efforts in helping organize this forum, and Gemma and Cara for taking the time to join us as our guest speakers today. We are incredibly fortunate to have them with us to share their valuable insights. To begin with, I would like to briefly introduce our organization. CLAIR, which stands for the Council of Local Authorities for International Relations, was jointly established by Japanese prefectures and municipalities in 1988. One of our key activities is collaborating with other organizations. This involves discussing and exchanging opinions on common issues between Japan, Australia, and New Zealand to deepen mutual understanding at the regional level. For this reason, the CLAIR Forum, which we have been holding annually, remains very important to us. This year, we have chosen the theme of waste reduction and circular economy. Recently, the effective use of resources and realization of sustainable society have become urgent issues. Promoting the circular economy, which repurposes and reuses limited resources, not only reduce environment impact, but also contributes to revitalizing the local economy. Achieving the circular economy requires the joint efforts of local governments, businesses, and residents. By reducing waste and using resources carefully, we can both protect the environment and build a more sustainable society. One significant difference I personally feel while living in Sydney is how the waste is separated at our homes. In Japan, residents generally separate waste into more detailed categories. vulnerable and non-vulnerable waste for non-recyclables, and then plastics, paper, bottles, cans, and so on for recyclables. And there are strict rules on how they need to be disposed. They are required to dispose of waste at designated places on specific days, depending on the type of waste being disposed as specified by the municipality. That is why, if you are starting a new life in Japan, I strongly recommend that you first check with your local council about waste separation and collection days. However, please do not be discouraged from living in Japan because of this. Please understand it as part of Japan's environmental policy. In today's forum, Mr. Nishimura, who is seconded from the Tokyo Metropolitan Government, and Mr. Munakata, who is seconded from Kuroishi City in Aomori Prefecture, will introduce initiatives regarding waste management by their respective governments, as well as the different initiatives adopted to promote a circular economy. We are looking forward to hearing about the strategies and initiatives adopted by the City of Sydney and Penrith City Council. Based on these examples, we hope to have a fruitful discussion on specific practical measures, share valuable insights for future developments, and consider and deepen discussion on the potential applications. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Hiaki. Next, I would like to introduce our co-host and facilitator of this forum, Professor Carol Mills. Carol is the director of the Institute for Public Policy and Governance at the University of Technology, Sydney. Prior to her current role, Carol has held a variety of roles in both the state and federal levels of government that covered a diverse range of areas such as community development, arts policy and administration, sports and recreation, and the environment. Now, I would like to invite Carol onto the stage to say a few words to us on behalf of UTS.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Hiraki. It's very nice to see you. Before I begin, I would also like to acknowledge that we are on the lands of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, acknowledge that these lands were never ceded. And as we're also broadcasting, I'd also like to acknowledge the lands on which our viewers today are joining us from. This is, I think, the 5th or 6th time I've had the pleasure of be part of the CLAIR Forum. I think the first one was about 2 weeks after I started, and so got the hang of it a little bit better now. It's been a very important relationship for us to have international links to Japan. We often think about it being a very different type of country in terms of scale of population and issues, but every time we have one of these forums, and indeed every time we meet with the team, we find much more in common than divides us. And we learn from the experiences of each other around regional issues, population changes, and today, very importantly for us, the climate action. This is Climate Action Week in Sydney, and so this is very timely for us to speak about the circular economy and reducing waste. It's something that the university is very dedicated to, and our team is. And the example you've already given about the responsibility that Japanese citizens take around recycling is something that we can learn from, as well as some of the industrial changes that are happening both here and in Japan. So I won't take too long, but I'm very appreciative of the people speaking today. Hiro Nishimura from Tokyo, as has already been introduced, Gemma Dawson from the City of Sydney, Morihito Munakata from Kurosho, I'm sorry, I always get that wrong, and Carla Nelms from Penrith. And one of the interesting things for us in both cases, we've got 2 capital city councils of rather different scale. Tokyo is an enormous council. City of Sydney is not as large, but has many of the concentration issues of CBD. How do you deal with businesses as well as residents, and some of the pressures that are occurring within the city, and some of the strategic plans I'm very keen to hear a little more about. Whereas in our others, we have more of a still urban, but growth areas. So population growth areas, particularly Penrith, as we know in Western Sydney, is an area of very dramatic growth in terms of residents, new release areas, and also business becoming a business hub. So again, how do we look at those issues? What do we see in common, and where do we see the differences? Before we began, I was speaking about a time I had a great privilege to visit Japan on a study tour, and went to an agricultural-based town that was going through significant transformation, and had identified recycling and circular economy as a really key way for us, as Mr. Hiroka said, both social and economic benefit to the community, and hopefully we can speak a little bit more about that later today. So thank you very much again. Welcome to UTS, welcome to this forum, whether you're here with us in person or online, and I'm sure we're going to have a very fruitful and interesting discussion.
Thank you, Carol. We will now start session 1 of the forum. I will now like to invite our first presenter, Mr. Masahiro Nishimura, also known as Hiro, to come on the stage. Hiro is on a secondment from Tokyo Metropolitan Government and will introduce the history of Tokyo's waste management and key initiatives, as well as the latest efforts to promote a circular economy.
Thank you very much, Emily, and thank you very much for having me to our forum. Thank you very much. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Masahiro Nishimura, and I'm a secondary from the Tokyo Metropolitan Government, currently working at CLAIR Sydney. Today, I will share with you some of Tokyo's key initiatives in waste management and circular economy. First, let me provide a brief overview of Tokyo. As the capital city of Japan, Tokyo is home to 40 million people, making it one of the most densely populated areas in the country. It also serves as the center of Japan's political, economic, and cultural hub. Tokyo is comprised of 62 municipalities and divided into 3 distinct areas. The dark green area on the map represents the 23 special wards, the Tokyo Central Urban Region, where approximately 9.8 million people live. The light green area represents the Tama region, which consists of 30 municipalities and is home to around 4.3 million people. Additionally, Tokyo covers a number of small islands stretching up to 1,200 kilometers from north to south. These islands are also part of Tokyo's administrative jurisdiction. Now let's take a brief look at the relationship between Tokyo's population and the volume of municipal solid waste in the 23 special wards. Following rapid population and economic growth after World War II, the volume of household waste increased dramatically. However, since peaking in 1989, Tokyo has successfully reduced its waste volume through active engagement in 3R initiatives, even as its population has continued to grow. So one of the biggest challenges Tokyo faces is a limited availability of land. To address this, Tokyo has developed disposal sites along Tokyo Bay. There are 7 landfill sites, each designated for a specific field, as indicated by numbers 1 to 7 on the map. Reducing the amount of waste transported to the final disposal sites is also important. Today, there are 21 incineration plants in Tokyo's 23 special wards. However, it has been a long and challenging journey to reach this point. So now let me take you through the history of waste management in Tokyo. This picture is from the 1950s. As Tokyo lacked sufficient land for final disposal sites, it was crucial to reduce the amount of waste requiring final disposal. However, the Tokyo Metropolitan Government faced significant challenges in building incineration plants in the 1950s due to strong opposition from local residents. In 1965, the lack of adequate waste treatment facilities led to kitchen waste being dumped directly into the final disposal sites. This caused a major issue with swarms of flies, and in some cases, the sites were set on fire in an attempt to exterminate them. In the Koto Ward, located near the final disposal site in Tokyo Bay, residents experienced severe problems caused by flies and odors from the site. Moreover, numerous spinning vehicles passed through the area as waste from all 23 special wards of Tokyo was transported to Koto Ward. In response to these challenges, frustrated residents broke the laws to prevent garbage from all other wards from being brought into their community. This conflict escalated, prompting the governor of Tokyo to declare a garbage war in the 1970s and call on citizens to recognize the seriousness of the waste problem. Insufficient incineration facilities meant that large amounts of kitchen waste remained unprocessed, attracting numerous seawards to the disposal sites until 1997. Around 2000, Tokyo's waste management issues have made significant progress, and severe crises experienced in the past have been averted. This picture illustrates the amount of final waste disposed in the landfill compared to the total waste produced in Tokyo. As you can see, the amount of the final waste, which is represented by the orange bars, is significantly more than the total waste generated, which is the blue bars. Also, the amount of waste is still substantial. We have successfully reduced the volume of waste sent for final disposal. The amount of waste generated in Tokyo from April 2021 to March 2022 was 81,729 tons per day, of which 40% was municipal solid waste and 86% was industrial waste. The amount of municipal solid waste is approximately 11,461 tons per day, and its disposal, including waste from households and small businesses, is managed by the municipalities. Each of the 62 municipalities in Tokyo is responsible for managing the waste generated within their respective areas. Through their insightful understanding of their respective locations, the municipalities provide attentive services tailored to the local conditions. Looking at the breakdown of municipal solid waste, 84% consists of combustibles, 12% is recyclable, and the remaining 4% falls into other categories. Let's take a closer look at the breakdown of combustibles. 41% consists of paper, 22% is plastic, organic waste is 21%, wood and glass are 8%, textiles are 6%, and the remaining 2% falls into other categories. This is the flow of municipal solid waste in the 23 special wards area. Residents separate their waste and dispose it accordingly. Each city is responsible for managing its municipal solid waste. The Clean Authority of Tokyo and the Tokyo Metropolitan Government handle incineration and final disposal in accordance with the details of their respective contracts. So here are some examples of how residents separate their trash. Mr. Munakata will explain the details later during his presentation. In local communities, voluntary recycling activities are also taking place. To gain the cooperation of residents, various efforts are being made, such as holding meetings, going door to door to educating residents, and creating easy to understand leaflets. In order for our future leaders to understand the significance of waste treatment and the importance of recycling, start working on the front lines of waste collection, conduct on-site lessons to children at primary schools. Let's take a look at industrial and commercial waste which amounts to approximately 70,268 tons per day. Waste generators are responsible for the proper disposal of waste. Typically, tasks such as collection, transportation, and final treatment are outsourced to private waste management companies. These companies must be licensed by prefectures or ordinance designated cities to carry out their operations under contracts with the waste generators. Looking at the breakdown of industrial waste, 56% consists of waste and sewage sludge. 37% is construction and demolition, which is C&D waste. And the remaining 6% falls into other categories. The final amount of industrial waste going to landfill decreased significantly due to the enforcement of the C&D Recycling Act, as shown in the bar chart. As shown on the slide, the amount of waste sent to the final disposal site is only 1.5%. However, the proportion of industrial waste that is processed within Tokyo is quite low. The majority of industrial waste generated in Tokyo is disposed of in other prefectures. Let's take a look at the landfill site in Tokyo Bay. This floor is one of the landfill sites. Residues left after through recycling and intermediate treatment are properly disposed of here. There is no room island within the 23 wards to construct landfill sites, so sea surface disposal sites are being developed in Tokyo Bay. These sites are managed by the Tokyo Metropolitan Government. Before the COVID-19 outbreak, the landfill site attracted many visitors. From April 2018 to March 2019, 90% of the annual visitors were school students between years 1 to 8. These students gain a deeper understanding of the importance of waste reduction and recycling by directly observing how the landfill site operates. The Tokyo Metropolitan Government faces two main challenges regarding industrial waste. One of the biggest issues is the lack of disposal sites. As of April 2021 to March 2022, 9.1% of industrial waste was processed in Tokyo, while most of it was disposed of in other prefectures. Legally, there is no problem with this, as industrial waste can be transported anywhere in Japan. However, transporting waste over long distances increases the risk of accidents and illegal dumping. Additionally, considering the sentiment of residents in other prefectures, it is not easier to bring waste from Tokyo into those areas. Regarding illegal dumping, the number of incidents have been decreasing within the Kanto region, which includes Tokyo and 6 other prefectures. However, it has not reached zero yet. Now, let me introduce some of Tokyo Metropolitan Government's initiatives regarding the circular economy. TMG aims to achieve net zero CO2 emissions by 2050 and is promoting the transition to a circular economy and resource circulation. To achieve this, TMG established the Tokyo Circular Economy Promotion Center, which is also called TSEC, in 2022, which serves as a hub for community-based circular economy initiatives. TSEC supports Tokyo residents and businesses in advancing their circular economy. It provides one-stop consultations, business matchmaking, and networking opportunities. From April 2023 to March 2024, TSEC handled 52 consultations, and it organized the symposium and salon-style networking sessions last year. These are the examples of support projects related to the circular economy that TMG offers. through the promotion of digital transformation in resource circulation and waste management initiative, TMG supports the adoption of digital transformation in waste management. Businesses are working to optimize waste collection rules using AI-based truck allocation and to visualize CO2 emissions during processing. Furthermore, TMG supports the implementation of social projects managed by businesses aiming to achieve a community-based circular economy. TMG is working on startup support program as well. Hatch Inc., operator of the online platform Circular Economy Hub, launched a circular economy focused startup support program as part of TMG's initiative in offering startup assistance through collaboration with various stakeholders. Lastly, I would like to introduce the Circular Economy and Natural Capital Promotion Fund for startup support. In Japan, the business environment for circular economy and nature positive initiatives is still in its early stages. Securing profitability in these areas remains a challenge, and as a result, private capital has yet to be sufficiently supplied to the market. To address this, TMG aims to establish a public-private investment fund by this month. This fund will support startups and enterprises engaged in circular economy initiatives, helping them grow and expand their impact. It will also drive the development of new financing models in collaboration with private companies. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Hiro, for your presentation. Next, I would like to invite Ms. Gemma Dawson from the City of Sydney.
Hey everyone, thank you very much for inviting me. And before we start, I'd also like to acknowledge that we are meeting on the lands of the Eora Nation, and I'd like to pay my respects to the traditional custodians of the land and extend those respects to elders past, present, and any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders that we are presenting to today in the room and online. My name is Gemma, so I am the Waste Strategy Manager at City of Sydney Council, and I'm here to talk to you today about our circular economy initiatives. We are definitely a much smaller city than Tokyo, but we absolutely face some of the same very similar challenges, and I'll just take you through some of the initiatives that we're looking to implement. So I'll just I'm aware that most people in the room are quite comfortable and know what the circular economy is, so I will go through these quite quickly. It's probably just a little bit of overview about how we view the circular economy and where we're getting our, I guess, our sort of methodology from. So, what is the circular economy? So traditionally, we have been part of a linear economy where we take materials, resources, we make things and then we dispose of them. Up until 50 years ago, I think that's how we operated. It's still largely how we operate today. We do have a recycling economy in both our residential streams and our commercial streams, but it is still probably smaller of the two. And obviously in the future, we'd really like to move forward into a more circular economy where we are reusing materials, refurbishing them as much as possible, and we eliminate waste altogether. So I've got a wonderful definition of circular economy from Dame Ellen MacArthur. I think she is widely known as one of the sort of pioneers of circular economy. Circular economy is a system where materials never become waste and nature is regenerated. So we like to sort of use that when we're framing up our projects. I'll just briefly go through the three principles. These are not City of Sydney principles. These are, as I said, very broadly adopted principles of the circular economy. So, the first principle is to design out waste. And we know that there are a lot of things that we can do to reuse materials and really focus on how we design services and products in the first place so that they can be reused and shared and made to last, made durable for a long time. Keeping materials at their highest value. So this is really important because we know that when we recycle, quite often we downgrade the quality of those materials and therefore they can't be continually recycled again and again. So if we can maintain the integrity of that valuable resource for as long as possible, then we can reduce the amount of materials that will eventually need to be disposed of. And finally, regenerate nature. So the act of replicating, regenerating materials. So composting is a really wonderful example. Other examples are where we use renewable and natural materials for construction. Quite often we find with modern manufacturing, there is a mixture of organic and chemicals. So clothing is a really good example of that, where you've got polyester and cotton mixed together, produces a great fabric, but then when it reaches its end of life, really difficult to separate. And we see this with a lot of products and materials, and it just makes it really hard then to extract and reuse those resources in the future. So I'll just give a little introduction to what we're doing at the city around circular economy. Just as a bit of an overview of the sort of the waste landscape in the city, we are a population of roughly 220,000, I believe. I may be corrected on that. We've got about 120,000 households. So again, much smaller than Tokyo. However, we are part of Greater Sydney, and Greater Sydney is around 5 million people. And I would hazard to say that a lot of other councils are in a similar position in terms of the types of waste streams that we produce. So for us, you can see on the slide, we like to look at things in terms of what we control, what we manage, and what we can influence. So in terms of what we control, you can see the waste that we produce from our own buildings. We own a number and manage a number of buildings in our LGA, in our government area. We also have a lot of construction projects. We build libraries, we build swimming pools, we maintain roads and facilities. So we do have a waste stream through those. We obviously are responsible for maintaining all the streets and parks and public places, and we collect waste from our residences. We don't collect waste from the business community in the City of Sydney. However, we do work with the business community in trying to reduce waste and increase resource recovery. And you can see that the amount of waste that it's an estimate because we don't actually collect that data ourselves, but we do some studies every couple of years to try and estimate how much waste we think is in our LGA, and we think it's around 500,000 tonnes. Construction demolition, it's really hard to get a figure on because similar to Tokyo, a lot of the waste that is produced in the City of Sydney is exported out of City of Sydney and is managed through other facilities in the state. But we do believe that the construction demolition waste per year is well over 1 million tonnes. So how can we, sorry about the size of the font on here, but we produced this slide to really understand how can we as a local government be part of the circular economy. What is our role? Where do we fit in? We don't extract raw materials ourselves, but we are heavily involved in the design of spaces, and we are the consent authority for new developments. So we can always be thinking about how we improve our own designs and how we can make our own buildings more circular. Again, we're not directly responsible for producing materials, but we do procure a lot of materials. So how can we be more careful about what we buy, how we buy things, how long they last, what's going to happen to them when they reach their end of life? We also distribution, so that sort of comes in line with that procurement phase, and then how we engage with our community. So how do we work with the business community? How do we work with our communities to incentivize them to change their behaviours, to change the way that they operate? And obviously, we are responsible for collection of waste streams and for managing the contracts on behalf of our residents. So we're always thinking about our long-term targets and goals when we procure those services on behalf of our community. So I'll just talk a little bit now about our journey so far. We are working on a new waste reduction and circular materials strategy, very similar to the title of this forum. But we have been working organically and intentionally on circular economy for quite a few years now, probably since, I don't know, early 2020. We've been proactively supporting, one of these items is the Repair Festival, which is in Redfern every year. So we support that event. We try to encourage waste avoidance. We have a whole waste avoidance team that works with our community. The middle side there, the middle picture there is a clothing swap event that we host a number of times per year. Really, really popular. We also, libraries of the original circular economy, and we're trying to extend the sorts of materials that we can support our community with by sharing not just books, but also electronics and toys and games. So waste avoidance is definitely at the forefront of our thinking. We do a lot of work with our community in food waste avoidance, both the business community and our residents. We also have our food scraps recycling program, which we're hoping to expand in future years. The middle picture there is our very beautiful Christmas tree, which was new as of probably 4 years ago now. But prior to that, our old Christmas tree was originally intended for about 7 years, and we used it for about 20 years. So, there is that opportunity to really use your products for as long as possible, really sort of extend the life of those assets, maintain them where we can. And when our materials do become available for reuse at the end, we actually donated a number of our Christmas trees to other councils around the country. So we sort of put out an EOI, say, does anyone else want to take our decorations and use them? So that's another way, I guess, of making sure that we don't send anything to landfill prematurely. And finally, one of the other projects that we've been working on is how do we use, this is part of a regional project. We've worked with other councils to take glass fines that were not suitable for recycling back into glass cullet, but using it as road base. And that's a project that's been very successful. But however, we do know that there's a number of challenges to achieving circular economy. As a local government, we don't operate in a bubble. So many things are designed for disposal, and it's a real challenge for all councils, I believe, to work with the material types that are placed into the bins that we service. So there's a real need for that sort of early design phase change. It's very often cheaper to buy new, so it can be difficult to promote buying durable products when they are, we are in a cost of living crisis. It is sometimes very expensive to buy very high quality materials, and it's also very expensive to repair them, or it's not possible to repair them because the products themselves weren't designed for repair. So that's something that we've spent a considerable amount of time advocating for. Access to information, again, technology is traditionally been designed in a way that it does need continual upgrades, and that often means that electronics reach their end of life very quickly, and it is definitely a growing waste stream for us. Our need for convenience, we're a highly dense populated area, and there are a lot of our residents and community that in order to function, we do rely on deliveries, we rely on having things very quickly. Time is a very important commodity for everybody, so it can make our normal behaviours quite wasteful. And then there's also the regulatory and policy barriers. So we know that a lot of products are not regulated at the end of life. And so without that regulation, it does make it very hard for product stewardship initiatives, I think, to really have an impact at the moment. And that's probably another area that we're really advocating quite strongly for, is that increased product stewardship. And I'll just finish a little bit on our strategic overview. So at the city, we have obviously our corporate community strategic plan is our overarching strategy that we consult with our community on and get approval for. And then we have a whole suite of different strategies across economic, social, cultural and environment. So these are all our policies that we're developing or have developed in the environmental space. And you can see we've got second on the left down is the new waste reduction and circular material strategy, but it is supported by a broad number of other strategic documents of the city. And in the interim, we have also recently published the circular economy statement, which is really just a position paper outlining, where what we see what we sort of define the circular economy is, and some of the projects that we're working on, and what we see the future of circular economy, and that's it.
Thank you, Gemma, for your presentation. Now let's move on to the 15-minute Q&A session for the first two presenters. Anyone got any questions? Oh.
Thank you. This is probably also going to be a question for the second session as well, but how important do you think it is for the local council to be a champion and an advocate to influence? A lot of both papers talked about influencing as well as what you can direct and control, education programs being good practice. One of the things we, I guess, face here is how do we engage the community in a lively and active and practical way about how significant these issues are. So I'm just interested in how much responsibility the council feels has a role in influencing circular economy and the community's understanding.
Thank you very much for your question. So Tokyo is a little bit tricky for the management of the circular economy, because the Tokyo Metropolitan Government covers the circular economy policies for the whole Tokyo Metropolitan councils. So there are 62 municipalities in Tokyo, and each of the cities, I assume, they do not have their own circular economy policies. But of course, they are working on their initiatives. But I think Tokyo Metropolitan Government should be the first one of the creating those kind of strategies that cities still sitting working.
Well, I guess probably by the fact that we have a circular economy statement and a coming strategy, that it is really important. I feel that the level of responsibility for what we can achieve is probably is defined in terms of what we can do under the Local Government Act. But I definitely think that there is acknowledgement that we are seen to be leaders in this space, and so we should promote and really look inwardly first, and that's what we I feel that we have been doing. It's not always easy. It's not always the most straightforward path. So I think that by sort of investigating these opportunities and then promoting them through our networks, through our communities, we can hopefully inspire both our community, residential community, but also our business community to get on board. And I do think there are some huge economic and community benefits from the circular economy, so hopefully they can be realised.
Hi, Edwina Deaton from the Institute for Public Policy here. I'm interested in how you see your national or state governments enabling the circular economy, like what's missing from a policy environment that would allow you, what do you hanker for at a high level of government to allow you to bring in the circular economy?
So from the Tokyo Metropolitan's view, our main target is to reduce the amount of the CO2 emission by 2050. Yeah, that we are aiming to make the 50%. No, it's as far as I remember, 50% carbon hub. Yeah, so that's what we are aiming for. So the location is first is missing for the the strategy of circular economy, but we are in it's really early stage of working on the strategy. But what we are supporting is a startup, as I said in the presentation. But what we should do is that that new initiatives or new businesses that start from the startups as I understand. So we should support startups by the fund and also the our support program. That is the first step for creating the good circular of the economy. And then after that, so to achieve this, we should work on the decreasing the amount of the CO2 emission by not only working with the government bodies, but working more with the private companies as far as okay.
I think if we could ask for one thing, it's just mandatory product stewardship. There's a lot of voluntary product stewardship schemes in Australia, but without that mandate, I think we're always going to struggle to compete against products made with virgin materials because they are subsidised, and the resource recovery and the refurbishment industry is not subsidised. So I think that product stewardship is really one of the key policy levers that federal government and to a smaller extent state government have in making a real difference. And things like the right to repair policy is really important as well. Thanks.
Melita Jasper from Institute for Sustainable Futures here at UTS. So communities and residents obviously are one of the important components in terms for enabling the circular economy or for it to happen. Have you done any studies to understand how much understanding actually is in community, or we can assume perhaps that recycling, they understand what it is, but for circular economy, what does it mean for them or what are the benefits?
Honestly, I need to Google it to research the answer. But as a policymaker, as a government, so we must have some evidence for making or creating new incentives regarding the circular economy. That's why we are creating a fund for future support startups. So there must be some research-based evidence regarding the location, but sorry, I have no answers for regarding the specific research about it.
We haven't done research into how many of our residents resonate with the term circular economy. But I think when we do communicate with our community, they are very highly focused on the environment. Waste is a really emotive issue, and recycling. I think waste avoidance, it resonates very highly. And when we communicate, we really probably focus more on those three principles rather than the term circular economy. So we focus on avoiding waste, reusing, refurbishing, recycling, so those more sort of tactile terminology rather than broader circular economy. But the business community is probably a little bit more engaged on circular economy and some of the broader opportunities there. So I think there is definitely an interest. It's just I think many community members may not understand exactly what the circular economy is. If you started talking about those principles, they would absolutely understand.
Hi, oh sorry. question for Hero, but I guess for Gemma as well. You talked a bit about the incineration plants and how important they are in reducing the amount of stuff that ends up in landfill. Just wondering how that relates to the net zero goals. The reliance on incineration is a bit of an issue there.
That's a good question, also the tricky question as well. So, what should I say? There are two methods of the way of incinerate the waste. So the first method is using a really high temperature to reduce the total amount of waste. That's about policy. The other policy is to not use the high temperature incineration, because that will allow you to decrease the amount of the toxic gases. But what we are doing is to use the dry layer method. That's because we don't have the sufficient landfill. So that's why we are trying to decrease the amount of waste. That's what we are doing. But in other countries, probably some may work on to use the low temperatures incineration plant. That's one of the answers to reduce the amount or more eco-friendly treatment. That's my answer.
Probably not an expert in this area, but I would say that you have to sort of compare the different residual treatments against one another. So obviously the preference is to avoid waste and then reuse, refurbish, recycle as much as possible. But with residual, you've got a couple of options, not many. One is landfill. So you have to balance what are the emissions coming from a landfill, the long-term emissions, the legacy emissions from landfills that we're still dealing with. Sydney Park used to be a landfill, still dealing with the emissions there, versus a facility that can generate energy from those emissions. So I think you have to compare the two different residual treatment types. We still have a considerable need for residual waste treatment here in Australia, and I don't see that changing very quickly, very soon, despite what we would like to see. So I think it's not looking at it in isolation, it's looking at the whole picture of how we manage our waste better.
Oh, thank you. Hi, Terry from Australian Industry Group. There's a lot of companies, big and small, that do a good job in circular economy, but there's a whole volume of companies that do the basic minimum to say they recycle, but beyond that, they say that getting the circular economy is a cost burden on the business. What, in your experience, works better? A grant to those companies to say, come do better, or a levy on those companies to say, here's a penalty for not doing it? Are there examples where both, carrot and stick approach works better or worse? And B, has the City of Sydney or even Penrith explored high temperature incinerators as a potential solution to the current issues we have?
So thank you very much for your question. That's good. That's good questions as well. Yeah. Well, the work the Tokyo Metropolitan Government is to create an opportunity to consult with the local businesses to work on the circular economy. So one of the example is that small where is that? Well, so for example, like restaurants, yeah, they're using some paper or plastic boxes for lunch box, but they would like to work on some circular economy or sustainable measures, and then but they do not have opportunity to talk or consult those matters to someone. So that's why the government created the opportunity. As I said, the TSEC is working to create opportunities to have a conversation with those local businesses and making with the specialists regarding a sustainable environment. Yeah, that's the one of the success story which the Tokyo Metropolitan Government did.
I think I would say that there's probably, you need both a carrot and a stick. So I think there needs to be regulation. So Europe is very strong in regulating those businesses in that product stewardship space. I personally think that regulation with with incentives is probably the best outcome. So increasing the regulation, but also providing the funding to help those organisations achieve the regulatory requirements is probably the most effective way to move forward. And your second question, there are no energy and waste plants in New South Wales, so I think as and when and if they become available, then I'm sure when we go out for our tender process, we would look at them. Yeah, at this point in time, they're not an option. I don't think they will be in the short term.
Last question, anyone?
In the presentation, I think you mentioned that Tokyo's waste generation peaked peaked in 1989. So I was wondering, has Japan's waste generation also peaked at that time, or is Japan's waste still ongoing, or like what has Tokyo done to peak at such a time?
That's a good question. Sorry, but I don't have the answers right now. I'm sorry. Do you have any ideas? So let's checking the Morris case. We can check the where is the peak. Sorry. So if anyone knows the where is the peaking and the local councils, yeah, please let us know, and I'll get back to you later. Thank you. So sorry about that.